Greetings.
Boy, we could go several different directions as we could with almost any topic, but content marketing strategy. Let's see. And I love what you know what? I was just gonna ask you to tell your joke, but it's not a joke if I'm ruining it for you. So,
No,
um,
it's just I start a class this week teaching crafting. What's it called? It's a writing class. It's called crafting communication clarity, and
I like
it's
that.
about writing contracts that are clear so that people understand them. 6 weeks long, 90-minute sessions every Wednesday, and it starts tomorrow. So I've got all that in my head, and I was thinking about words. And when you were saying that tonight's discussion was on content, it just popped into my head because this is how my feeble brain works. And I just posted, I said, you should be content with your content.
I like that though. I also like your all your C's and everything in your class. Did you come up with that for the title? That's
I
good.
did.
Just like you have all your E's too, all your what do you call that when they're
The ease of Twitter, EASE, ease, but there's 5 things that start with the letter E. It's every post you put on social media should, I don't even know if I'm going to remember all 5 right now, educate, um, encourage, enlighten, entertain, or something else that starts with E. Anyway, yeah, alliteration is something I've always loved playing with.
I almost said admonish, but I'm like that doesn't start with an E. That's that would right that doesn't work. But that's a great way to remember, or at least get you thinking. Where you trying to remember how to spell. That's wow. With all the C's, and now I'm thinking all these different words. You know, there's a lot of people that actually need your course as far as contracts. I won't go all into it because I don't want to embarrass anyone. As far as like this weekend, um, I made a purchase and had trouble getting a hold of support for the purchase, and I thought, people, you need to define your contract. You need to define your product so people know what they're purchasing, and then you need to define what you mean by support. Does it mean you're actually going to answer when people email, or are you going to answer when they go to your support site? I mean, what does support mean in my definition for support? When somebody asks you a question or contacts you, you respond. That's a thought for support. It's not just to leave you hanging and you're wondering what did I pay the money for, but um, I don't know. Maybe the assumption is different for different people, but I'm actually still waiting. What is it now? We're approaching Wednesday. I'm still waiting for something I submitted on Saturday. But again, I don't want to embarrass the people. Maybe they're exhausted and they haven't slept, or there's some excuse, and I'm too nice and I want to give them the, the benefit of the doubt. But they need your class as far as communication and defining as a part of that, defining their product, because I think a lot of people just assume that when they put a product out there that people just know what they're thinking. Do you ever find that?
Well, when I was writing the leadership book, one of the things that I noted about people in general, and keep in mind that in my too long career, I can't tell you how many thousands of contracts or modifications to contracts or solicitations or all of the different documents that go into contracting. I can't tell you how many I've reviewed, and so you get a very broad feel for how people write. And the observation I made was that when you see unclear writing, it's a big red flag that the person is engaged in unclear thinking. In other words, they can't express themselves in writing because they're not thinking about it clearly. And if you fix the thinking, then you can express yourself better in the writing. And so much of the leadership class talks about the ways to think about things, to engage in the critical thinking and the systemic thinking and the strategic thinking that gets you to where you want to be, so that when you sit down and put pen to paper, to use the old phrase, you start typing on your keyboard, you then express yourself in a way that is clear to everybody. And one of the quotes that I actually had to research, and it researches back to 95 AD. And the quote, and
Wow.
you've probably heard 1,000 people claim authorship of it. But the quote is that you don't write to be understood. You write so that you cannot possibly be misunderstood.
I have heard that in 95 AD is when it was.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that's like just what, 60 years past when Christ was walking the earth.
Yeah, it
Or
was said to
thereabouts.
people who lived at the same time. Yes, very true.
Whoa. Whoa. I mean, not to get religious, but I mean, that kind of puts it into context as far as who was here on earth.
But I'm sure, Deborah, you probably see this too. How many times have we been reading a post on social media, any platform, take your pick, and somebody makes a witty saying or says something, and then they put their name on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't tell you how many times I've seen that, and I look at it and I go, they didn't say that. That comes from Ben Franklin or Abraham Lincoln or Mark Twain. And because of all the research I've done, and I love quotes, so I've collected them over time, it's amazing how often you see these things.
That really annoys me. That's why I like to research to see who said it.
Well, and this is why, and I try to be quiet about this because it's my personal opinion, but this is why there are some of these people that, have you read, so-and-so's latest blog post or seen his latest, podcast or whatever? And I'm like, no, I have no respect for the person. They're phony. So anyway, personal opinion there.
No, I get it. Because, I put my name to my own quotes, and there's so few of them in comparison to the number of quotes that are out there that I love that are not my quotes, that are somebody else's quotes. But I mean, the actual things that I've said that are not, that I'm very careful that it's like, did I hear this from somebody else? And then I'll put my name on it. I'll put the date. I'll actually log them when I know it's something I've come up with that's based on, but I know that's something I've come up with. But to be very careful that they're separate from something that someone else has said. But yeah, I personally don't put my name on a social media post when it's another quote, something I've heard, even if I don't know who said it first. It's I'll put it's been said, or it's been quoted, or I don't know who said this, but it obviously wasn't me.
And again, in research for the leadership book, I can't tell you how many times I ran across the identical quote attributed to two different people from two very authoritative sources. And I remember one footnote in particular. I said, this quote is attributed to, I gave the name. I said, however, please see footnote however many hundred ahead. And you go back there and it attributes the quote to somebody completely different and refers you back to my first footnote that says, you figure it out. But even this one about being misunderstood, a great site for researching this stuff is Quote Investigator. And I turn to them a lot. And on that particular quote about don't write to be understood, write so that you cannot be misunderstood. The entry for them is very lengthy because they said, a lot of people have claimed credit and they tick through them. And then they go back in time and they keep ticking back. And this one they traced all the way back to 95 AD and by the way, it was a book on rhetoric. A book to the degree they had books back then. But, the point was it was a writing on rhetoric. And that's where it was first said that we can find.
Wow. I love the quotes in your book. That was, well, I don't want to say that's my favorite part because there's definitely meat in your book, but I love quotes. So that was really fun to see which quotes you had in each section.
You like those better than the Dilbert cartoons? Come on, priorities here. The quotes I got to use, Dilbert I had to pay for.
There we go. I don't know. I like how you laid out each section, and I haven't read every section. I still need to go through your book and actually finish reading it. But I kind of, you already know this, where since I have the Kindle version, I kind of hunt and I pop around, and I can search. So I like doing that.
Well, for the people who have the book, and I always, if I have anything to do with them having the book, I always tell them this. It's more like a textbook. It's not something, a novel you sit down and read cover to cover. And so what I recommend people do is they read the first 3 chapters, which is about 65 pages, somewhere in there. And the first chapter lays out a history of leadership. Now, we're talking about content tonight. And so, some people say, well, why'd you start there? And I said, because in my studies, what I determined was that we have had so many theories of leadership, none of which work. They're not predictive. If they're not predictive, then they don't work. Now, does that mean they have no influence? No, they have great influence. But laying out that history then allows me to say, given all of the problems with all these other theories, here's the one I've come up with. And we use the WBS, a work breakdown structure, which project managers recognize as the framework within which all tasks of a project are included. When you finish all the tasks, the project is concluded. Well, we speak of the leadership journey as a lifelong journey, so you never finish it. It's not really a project. But the tool of identifying all the elements is very useful for that. And so after you read chapter 1 on the history, chapter 2, which one of my reviewers insisted I put in, and they were absolutely correct, what is a WBS? Because not everybody knows. So put a chapter in to cover that. And then chapter 3 begins to talk about all 229 elements, has them there in an outline format. And the point is that once you get to that point, you say, okay, I think my competence is pretty good. I've got my college degrees. I've got my years of experience. I'm okay there. Probably areas to improve, but okay. But then let's say you jump over to communication. You say, oh, I can't give a public talk, or, I can never express myself the way I want to in my writing, or whatever it is. Well, there are 41 different elements under communication alone that will help guide you into the specific area where you need assistance. And so the content of the book was designed around being the most helpful resource you could possibly have. Because at the end of each one of the sections, I give you a little graph, and it says, this sounds like me from not at all to a lot. And you can rate yourself. Say, yeah, it does or doesn't match what I do. And then it gives you some resources, mostly books, some websites. And the bibliography is like 28 pages long in the back of the book, because every one of the elements has a different set of resources. Then you have specific actions you're going to take and a due date. And if you understand project management, you just created a project plan. Now get to work on it. Do those things to improve in that area. And you say, oh, but there's 229 of them. They're so overwhelming. Yeah, it's a lifelong journey. And you will find too, even though you worked on something and you got better at it, you can still get better than that. And so you recycle, you go back through it. And so, that set of content is 678 pages of a book. And so I appreciate people can look at it and go, oh my God, I could never do all of that. Get started. That's all I ask. Just start. And again, to quote an ancient Oriental sage, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. And by the way, to your point earlier about, not knowing who said it, I have been known, particularly if I lose my train of thought when I'm doing public speaking or, staff meetings type talking, and I simply say, well, somebody really smart once said, and I just say the quote, and that way I'm not taking credit for it, but I can't remember who said it. I have to look it up. That's
a good way to put it. It's like...
And you're right. People love quotes. People, they hang on to it. And certainly if you quote, a Franklin or a Lincoln or, somebody like that, Socrates, these are all people that people recognize, and they can work with and remember the little story, the little anecdote, whatever it might be. So yeah, tonight's talk about content has to do with the fact that you need to put something out there. You need to be able to, and I don't want to say advertise because that brings a whole bunch of negative things, but you got to make people aware. They're probably problem aware. They could be completely unaware, but then they move to being problem aware and say, okay, this is a problem. This is an issue. This is something I need to fix. I need to think about. I need to look at it. I need to do something different with this. And then they may be solution aware. Meaning, okay, it's a problem, and I think I know the solution. Now, they may be right, they may be wrong. According to their thinking, they're right. And your content has to agree with them, or they're not going to pay any attention to it. And then if you need to move them to a different slant or a reframe, if you will, of either the problem or the solution that brings them back to you. Jeffrey Gitomer is a great writer on sales and marketing. He actually wrote a book called The Sales Bible. And he had these little colored books, the teal book of something, the red book of questions or answers, or anyway, he had these all these different colored books. And he made the point about the truly great questions that you ask people. He said the best questions are the ones that cause a person to respond to you in terms of their problem as it relates to your solution.
Ooh, that's good. That's creative.
And when he walks you through that, you end up learning much better how to craft questions. And the questioning part of any sales or marketing or your content should address those types of issues in that perspective.
Wow. I realize when I'm editing this video, I'm going to go back and listen to what you just said again and again. It's like, wait. So you want the person to ask the question so that the answer is your solution. Is that basically?
In a manner of speaking, yes. That's close enough. Target that, you'll get close enough to it. But the point is that people are looking for solutions. You have a solution. Yep. And a lot of your content must address where they are, how they're going to perceive things. Yeah, I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to. It says, "Oh, well, people need this, so I'm going to sell it." And they're like, "I can't sell it." Well, because
you're forcing it.
Yeah, you're not really addressing the people. You're not meeting them where they are. You have to take them by the hand and walk them through the process to get where you want them to be. And it's interesting to me because the classes I'm going to be doing, we've got 6 sessions, and tomorrow's just starts out with basic grammar. A sentence has a subject and a verb. How many people mess that up? How many people, when they're writing, start putting things in the wrong places, and you're like, I can't even figure out what they're trying to say. Next week,
I can't do that. I mean, not to say I haven't in a tweet or something, but I couldn't even do that. Michael asked me to text for him because he was driving, which I'm glad because it's illegal he can't text, he's driving. But I was supposed to respond for him to his boss. And I'm like, I can't do this, Michael. I need to capitalize this. But I know I can't because you don't capitalize. So I've got to respond like I'm you. But I have to do it incorrect. And that's not correct to do it incorrect. But it's like...
Well, do it incorrectly. That would be an adverb for doing.
I know. I was just thinking that as I said it. I'm like, I said that incorrectly when I said that I'm going to do it incorrect. But yeah.
but one of the phrases that I've put in my talking notes tomorrow is about how I'm going to improve people's writing skills and improve their contracts and their communications with other people. And then at the tail end of that, say, and I'm going to ruin your life. Because as soon as you learn these things, you're going to start spotting them, and they're everywhere. And so I caution people that if they pay too much attention, it's going to ruin their life. I use an excerpt. One of the slides is the opening sentence, which turns out to be the opening paragraph of A Tale of Two Cities. And we all know about it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Yep. And he goes through this whole series of things saying best and worst, greatest and least, all these comparisons, perfect parallel structure. And every one of those clauses, that's what they're called, is separated by a comma. Now, today, we would use a lot of semicolons, but he did nothing but commas through that whole thing. Now, it's a piece of fiction. It's not a contract. But at the same time, you want clarity of understanding. So anyway, when you start studying the stuff, particularly when you're preparing to teach it, you start jamming so many random facts in your head. But on the whole, it comes together and you are a better writer. You're a better speaker. You can help other people be better writers and better speakers, or better communicators, to use the more generic term. And if you want 40 more elements that I can share with you of how to improve your communication, let me know. Happy to help out.
It bugged me when I sent you a message DM in X yesterday because I was doing it on my phone and I knew that it was incorrect as far as grammar, but I couldn't fat finger it. And I was like, you know what? I hope he just knows that I know better on the grammar, but this is just going to be incorrect because I'm doing it with my finger.
Well, we're among friends. And speaking of which, I know I've dominated a bit tonight, but nonetheless, we are at our 20-minute mark. And I
Yep.
want to give you the flexibility as the hostess of this wonderful podcast that we've been doing for these many weeks to wrap it up in a way that suits what you're thinking.
I think you've done an awesome job of covering the content marketing. I was just going to hit the buzzer, make sure that the sound levels were correct, and practice that one. And plus, then it will be on our live. So you ready for I turned it down so it won't be quite as loud. And hit our nice buzzer music. Oops, did it go? There we go.
It's coming through perfect volume on this end.
Oh, good.
To those of you that may not know Deborah as well as you should, she is actually an award-winning jazz singer with her own CD out there, CD. And I've been graced with a copy of one of those. And when you get a chance, find it, listen to it. You will not be disappointed.
Well, thank you for the advertisement. I appreciate that. I was like, what is I forgot what my pitch was on that one. Sassy with a dash of class. But anyway, thank you for tuning in to Social Cafe Interactive Live, and we will see you same time, same place next week. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. Bye now.